Hi, this is Josh Kilroy here for the Fair Deal Democrats. About 24 hours after Zoran Mamdani clinched the Democratic nomination, um, I have to say I'm still a little heartbroken over the results of the primary. But, we have these elections for a reason. He ran a great campaign um, and he connected with voters. I certainly understand the disgust that people have or had have for uh, on and Andrew Cuomo. um, I didn't I would not really I would have had a hard time ranking him as my second favorite candidate. Um, but I just want to follow up because there's it's just discouraging about what this says for my party, right, the Democratic Party. Um, as awful as the Trump administration is and will be going forward. One, and as bad as the defeat was last November, the silver lining has always been that we will have a chance to regroup in much the same way that we did after 1988, which I was alive to see that process in action. Um, I was not initially a fan of the Democratic Leadership Council, but as I've matured, I've come to see the importance of that moment. Um, and the importance when Bill Clinton emerged as the candidate, the nominee, um, for all of his many flaws, he understood to run on economic opportunity and a kind of cultural conservatism. The party needs to get back to that. And the election yesterday was a, a stunning refutation of that idea. Um, and but it's just um, here's the thing: there is no way, you know. I heard people today talk about, oh well, Brad Lander will be around. He knows how government works. Like he'll make sure the machinery's running to enact Zoran's ideas. The ideas don't work themselves. The government is not going to run a grocery store, or much less a chain of them. They are not going to undercut uh, other groceries. The grocery business has a super low profit margin. The government is not going to come in with unionized government employees who will be well paid, um, and they're not going to undercut the bodegos that provide grocery services for many of the lower income neighborhoods. They might put some of the immigrant run businesses out of business, but that hardly seems like a noteworthy outcome. He is not going to lower rent. I mean, if he can, even if he freezes the rent on rent controlled apartments, that's just going to put more market pressure on the other apartments in the city, which will rise substantially. Um, and even in the rent controlled apartments, it'll make it difficult for landlords to make improvements, and so those buildings will gradually hold fewer and fewer people. These ideas cannot work, and at the heart of it, there is this idea of globalizing the intifada, and that does not mean, in spite of what people are saying today, it's not a code word for everyone hold hands and sing "We Shall Overcome" for the Palestinians. It means kill the Jews everywhere. And we saw that in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago when that young couple was gunned down right outside the embassy there. Um, and it's just very hard to see much good coming from this. I mean, so it'll be a disaster both in governance and in policy discussions nationally. Um, so Um, the other thing I want to say is that there were good candidates on the ballot. Not all of them were my cup of tea, but Adrienne Adams was certainly a highly competent candidate. She knows how government works. She would have been a perfectly fine mayor. Scott Stringer, again, same thing. Um, Perfectly competent alternative. Zellner Myrie, I'm actually excited about him. He has a bright future, I believe, and he had some great ideas on affordable housing. Certainly, much more workable than anything Zoran's come up with. And of course, Whitney Tilson, the candidate that the Fair Deal Democrats endorsed. There were exciting ideas on the ballot, and they did not break through. And maybe it's because they were not masters of social media in the way that Zoran uh, turned out to be. Maybe that could be one of the lessons. But I mean, they certainly represented the best of the establishment. And Whitney Tilson is an outsider for the most part. Um, he would have brought a breath of fresh air into city government. So these people say, oh well, it was all a bunch of stale people. There were good people there, and somehow the system failed that they could not communicate. I did want to note just to underscore a recurring problem in the Democratic Party. I was looking at some of the breakdowns. Zoran beat Cuomo 42 to 30% among the highest income New Yorkers. And among the lowest income New Yorkers, Cuomo won 49 to 38%. Among college graduates, Zoran won 45 to 28%. And among African American voters, Cuomo won 51 to 34%, which just again, African American voters are the sensible moderates in this party, and we should do a lot more listening to what they have to say. Zoran talks about helping low income people of color, but the low income people of color are not his base. His Riverside neighbors are his base. Um, and I have to say, side note, I was surprised to find out just today that his mother is Mira Nair, a filmmaker. I saw Mississippi Masala over 30 years ago, and saw Monsoon Wedding, and I certainly admire her work and the fresh perspective she brought to movies over the years. Um, so I wish I could be more supportive of her son. Um, anyways, I'm learning to try to cut these videos short, so I will leave it at that. But again, last night I called for a coalition to come together to defeat Zoran. I still feel this is of the utmost importance. It will feature mediocrity and mendacity. Whether it's Cuomo who runs on an independent line, or if everyone has to get behind Eric Adams. Oh, good Lord, who can stomach that? But, again, the comparison with Louisiana in 1991, it holds. Edwin Evans, Edwin Edwards had already served a prison stint, if I remember correctly, and yet he was still the right candidate to back against David Duke. And people might say, "Oh, well, Zoran's no David Duke." Globalizing the Intifada. If you're not willing to denounce that, you're in David Duke category as far as I'm concerned. Um, Anyways, I thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to me. I'll have more to say as the days go by, but until then, I'm going to keep my head up. I encourage everyone to do the same. Thank you.